What's good with you, family? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to back up out of here, man. Give me 1 second, y'all. Yeah, Foster eBayy, bro. I gotta have a little talk with you, homie. You know what I'm saying? And it's out of love. You know, it's out of love. But I gotta have this little talk with you. You know, I just listened to your video about the Orishas, and you had some choice words, right? And I feel that it's pretty much valid for me to do this video and talk to you in this manner, because I heard the video you did with Rashad Jamal, you know what I mean? And it wasn't disrespectful, and obviously this is not going to be disrespectful, but you know, yeah, man, I didn't like what I was hearing, you know, for you to be my African brother, our African brother. I didn't like what I heard, man. I didn't like what I heard. Let me park over here for a quick sec while I do this. I ain't like what I heard. I ain't like what I heard, right? Because I ain't like what I heard, man. And I didn't watch the whole video. I heard enough. And this is what I'm gonna say, man. You know, and this is what breaks my heart as I see what's going on in Africa and what pertains to Africa. I know that the Western world is very attractive. I know that United States and what goes on in the United States is very attractive. And, you know, it becomes catchy and trendy. The things that goes on in the States becomes catchy and trendy, you know, other places. And melanated people have a connection, you know, to each other. But, you know, unfortunately, man, I have to bring this to your awareness. And this is what saddens me as it pertains to Africa, you know. A book that you should read, you know, a book that you should read is A Destruction of a Black Civilization from Chancellor Williams, right? Now, I'm spiritual. I am esoteric. I make some of the most esoteric videos on YouTube. But it has to be grounded. It has to be everything that you do, your spirituality, esoteric information, and your knowledge. It has to be grounded in history, so you can know who is who and what is what. All right? And so, unfortunately for you, you are pertaining the wisdom and the science and the knowledge of your ancestors and your forefathers, our ancestors and our forefathers. You are looking at it through the lens of the Western world. See, the Western world, they wasn't in tune with nature. Okay? They wasn't in tune with nature. And this is something that Bobby Hemming said too also. One man's God is another man's devil. You know, it was the Western world, colonizers, okay? The Romans, the Greeks, not even so much the Greeks though, but it started with the Greeks, but the Romans, the Western world, Europe, these are the people that started to put the demonizing idea on indigenous religions. See, if you really study indigenous culture, I came to the conclusion that they all are similar to the Olmecs, to the Sumerians, to the Egyptians. You know, and even down to, as you were speaking about, the Orishas. Now, I don't know much about the Orisha system, but I do know enough that it's similar to the Netcherus, meaning they are divine attributes or divine personalities that exist in this construct. Which is also, as you stated, can be identified as the planets. But you got to understand, that these divine personalities are not only just the planets. This is something that came with the Western world that they identified, but it's more than that, because you got to understand, they only got so much of our knowledge. They only unlock so much of the keys. And so I have a pet peeve when someone comes along and they call paganism evil. They call the Egyptians evil, the left-handed path, so on and so forth. I have a pet peeve of that. All right. And I always defend, and I always come on the front line, and I always set the record straight on who is who and what is what and how these things came about and where it came from. See, when Africa was invaded by the Western world, all of their customs and all of their ways was attacked, meaning that an outside entity enforced upon them their frame of thought and their frame of thinking, which their frame of thought and their frame of thinking is nothing but a perverted version of what our ancestors has already built and constructed. But you got to understand that people have different perceptions of something. Somebody could read the Bible and they can see and get something totally different from what somebody else get it. I have a spiritual eye. So when I read the Bible, I'm in my mind, these are things that's happening alchemically. But if somebody else read it, they're looking for something physical. They're looking for something outside of themselves instead of for something inside of themselves. So to cut a long story short, when the invaders came into Africa, they couldn't understand that science. They couldn't understand that knowledge. Just like they say, man fears what they don't know or what they don't understand. So a lot of that was above their head. And those that could understand it, what they do, they took the knowledge and they ran with it. They stole from it and they created things with it. And they didn't give them the proper props, or they didn't give them their credit from where they got these things from. See, the science that comes out of Africa is a divine science. It is the birth of astrology and astronomy. It is the birth of alchemy. It is the birth of the occult. It is the birth of religion. See, the modern religions demonizes indigenous culture and indigenous sciences, because I like to call them a science because they are a science. They demonize these sciences. But what little people don't know is that the hidden meanings in these modern religions, or what they call the Abrahamic faiths, the esoteric meanings is no different from what's taking place inside the indigenous culture. So what I'm telling you is the exoteric, the outside, the outer coat is a front. And the real religion has never changed. The real religion has never changed. For the past 2 or 3 years, I've been studying what they call Judaism. And I developed a great love for Judaism. Now, the only way that it was possible for me to even develop a great love for Judaism is the way that it lines up with indigenous culture and belief. Through the Sephiroth. And through the Sefer Yetzirah was my introduction and was my doorway that I walked through to this world. So, the profound secret that I just unveiled for myself is that probably a lot of people in the world don't know or don't understand, is that the Israelites and the Egyptians are the same people. Because what happened was something took place there how can I explain this? That way, that mystery system became tainted and insufficient for the times that was insufficient. It just became outdated. And so they left from one frame of thought to a new frame of thought. Because a lot of people really wasn't just understanding the sciences no more. They didn't understand them. They started to lose track of what was exactly right. And from the biblical point of view, people started to actually worship the physical image of something instead of what the thing actually represented. See, it's not about the symbol, it's about what the symbol represents. So this is what started to take place in the ancient world. So they left from that frame of thought and came into a new frame of thought, which birthed Israel. Because it was Jacob, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes I get Jacob and Joseph mixed up. But it was Jacob whose name was changed into Israel. So the Israelites are just Egyptians. That obtained a higher, and of course you got to understand the close relation between the Egyptians and the Babylonians. I don't want to get into that there, or the Sumerians. I don't want to get into that here, but you should know that there's a connection there as well. And so they came into a new frame of thought, a new frame of mind. And a bit of a proof that I would give you here would be through a common prayer that's called the Shema prayer or the Shema prayer. And it's Shema Yisrael. Adonai Yahavah Eloheinu Yahavah Akkad. So basically what is this saying is listen, Israel, our Lord Yahavah and our gods are one. And so a lot of our teachers in the Kemetic community, like Infudishi, he always talked about how the Necheruz was a divine principle, or a way that God manifests himself, the one way that the eternal creator manifests himself in different forms. So listen, Israel, our gods are one. You know, so that's what the Yod Hey Vav Hey represents. That's what the Elohim represents. It's the totality of the whole family tree. Adam Kadmon, but it's one, but it's separate, but it's not separate. It's together, the way that we should be as a unit. Separate, but not separate, together. So, you know, I guess to wrap this up, I guess to say is that, you gotta do some brushing up on history, and you gotta do some brushing up on history. The history is gonna tell you who is who and what is what. And so you can put everything in its proper perspective. You know what I mean? And, and that's just going to put you on game. And that's where you need to be. The way a person sees the creator or the way a person sees divine attributes don't determine if they're evil or not. These symbols are representatives of what takes place in the real world. They are personalities. Heru is a personality. Moses is a personality. Abraham is a personality. Osiris is a personality. Set is a personality. The divine attributes are just personalities. Christ is a personality. We all done seen a Christ figure come in our lifetime. Somebody that stood for something and died for the cause. That's a personality. So it's not about the symbol. It's about what the symbol represents. So ancient indigenous culture, African spiritual systems are not evil. And they're not the left-handed path. That's Western thinking. And I hate to see our African brothers and sisters operating through Western thinking, because those of us who have studied our history know the truth about our ancestors, and we know the truth about our roots. We know that these religions came out of Africa. We know that these religions stole from Egypt. The book of Psalms is nothing but the teachings of Ptahhotep. Almost word for word. There are so many different situations in the Bible where you can see that this stuff was taken directly out of Egypt. The whole concept of resurrection was taken out of Egypt. The whole concept of afterlife was taken out of Egypt. Okay? But what happens is when these thought forms and this science was put into Greek and then later put into Latin, when it was put into Greek, these sciences, they took on different names, and it was a different way of explaining it. You see what I'm saying? So it was a whole evolution of what went down for it to come to what it is today. But those of us who study know where this stuff comes from. You see? And so, and so really that's what it is. So the spiritual systems in Africa cannot be evil. Because if the parent is evil, then the child is evil. You see? If the parent is evil, then the child is evil. And what else do I want to say before I go? And yeah, and so these divine attributes, they're not just, planets. As above, so below, but they're not just planets. So you can learn a lot more about the sciences of the planets when you get into Kabbalah. Because when you study Kabbalah, you will understand that it's a whole legion of angels that's attached just to one sphere or to one planet. All right. So the rabbit hole goes deep. It's a lot of studying. I mean, we're talking about information that's a lifetime of work. That's a lifetime of work. You're talking about information that's a lifetime of work. An Israelite is somebody who has left the lower nature and has ascended to the higher nature. That's what truly an Israelite really is. That's why a Hebrew is to cross over. You left the realm of evil and you became a Sadiq. You became a righteous one on the path, and you ascended to the higher realms of understanding and consciousness, what we call the higher self. That's what an Israelite truly is. And so you can also see this in the Horus and Set. Muta Ashby talks about that, and I believe it's Kemetic Yoga. He talks about Set as the lower self and Heru as the higher self. And how Set was the ruler of the south and Heru was the ruler of the north, or Upper Egypt. I'm sorry. Set was the ruler of Lower Egypt. Heru was the ruler of Upper Egypt. So this is the lower self and the higher self. And you can also see, and Kabbalah gets real deep into semen retention in the Bible, and everything that comes out of Kabbalah is basically esoteric information coming directly out the Torah. So semen retention is there. And for me personally, I believe semen retention is also in ancient Egypt, because when you see those glyphs that people don't understand with the phallus erected, I personally believe that has to do with semen retention. I personally believe that has to do with keeping your charge. So, I know I go a lot of places. I read a lot, I'm not saying I know it all. I just hope that I could shed some light and kind of, this is not to try to beat you up or anything like that. But yeah, man, for us here in the States that really study history, we know the truth about African culture, and we know what happened. We know what happened. We know why it happened. And we understand why things is the way that they are. Okay? And so, so yeah, man, I hope in some way, shape, or form, that this can help in some kind of way. But, don't call African culture or indigenous spirituality in no type of way evil or the left-handed path. Don't do that, family. Don't do that. More people died behind Christ and Muhammad and Islam behind anything else. Okay? Now, ain't nobody perfect. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that in ancient Africa or anything that, it was all peaches and cream or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But, the evidence is there, what was forced upon them. When these people came in Egypt, when Christianity was taking form in Egypt, when Christianity was starting to be born, they stopped people from being able to worship their cultural heritage and their natural religion. They stopped people from doing that. They shut temples down. And when they shut the temples down, people started to worship in their homes or at the at the graveyard and things of that nature. Right? And then they they manifested a foreign doctrine in the image of a European or in the image of a Greek, which was Serapis, who later became Jesus. And so, in order for them to, get the people of that land into this new foreign religion, because they wasn't going for it. They wasn't going to do it. Nobody's going to worship nothing foreign and go against their ancestors. So what they had to do was they put a brother over the religion. So the first pope was a black man. And if I'm not mistaken, his name was Sylvester. I think it was called the Donation of Sylvester or something like that. You have to get the historical origins of Christianity by Walter Williams. All right. And so, it was a lot of information that came out that's been coming out, from our ancestors. A lot of this information is still being taught by people like Infidiji, by people like Anthony Browder, people like Shaka Amos. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anybody else, man. But yeah, get the history. The spiritual part is what I love, but the history is needed though. You gotta, the history is the foundation. You gotta have your history correct so you can understand who is who and what is what. All right. And that's it, man. I'm gonna leave it off there. Peace.